Welcome to Echo of Crime YouTube channel. It was the early 1990s, the dawn of the digital age. Computers were new, the internet was wild, and firewalls were still a rumor. But somewhere inside that chaos, one man was quietly rewriting the rules of security and fear. His name was Kevin Mitnick, a California-born computer prodigy who became America's first real cyber criminal legend. By day, he looked like an ordinary tech worker, quiet, polite, invisible. But by night, he became the ghost in the network. Mitnick didn't use guns or masks or getaway cars. His weapon was information. He could call a company pretending to be an IT technician and convince them to hand over passwords, phone numbers, and server access. Then, within minutes, he'd slip through their systems like smoke, stealing confidential source codes and private messages, not for money, but for the thrill of control. By the age of 30, Mitnick had hacked into Nokia, Motorola, IBM, and even major cellular carriers. He knew the digital backdoors that even the developers didn't. Every time he broke into a system, he left a message, not words, but his style, flawless, invisible, impossible to trace. Soon, the FBI realized they weren't chasing a normal criminal. They were chasing a ghost. Every time they came close, he was already gone. He would reroute his digital trail through dozens of servers, leaving behind false IP addresses, fake identities, and traces that led nowhere. Agents would spend months tracking him, only to find he had been using their own security systems to spy on them. The public didn't know it yet, but inside FBI offices across America, Kevin Mitnick's name became a code word for digital chaos. One report called him the most wanted computer criminal in U.S. history. Another warned that if he ever got online again, he could bring down the nation's phone system. Mitnick was now living under fake names, renting apartments with cash, and using stolen phone codes to make untraceable calls. He carried multiple cloned cell phones, swapping numbers every day. The FBI could never pinpoint him. His signal always bounced, disguised, disappearing the moment they thought they had him. He wasn't hacking for money anymore. He was hacking for something far more powerful: attention, control, and proof that no one system was untouchable. But the more systems he breached, the higher his name climbed on the FBI's list. And soon, the hunt for him turned from a cyber investigation into a full-blown national obsession. Late one night in 1994, a young FBI agent monitoring phone lines in Raleigh, North Carolina, heard a tone sequence he'd never heard before. The signal flickered, then went silent. The next morning, the agent made a call that would start the most intense cyber manhunt in U.S. history. The year was 1994, and the FBI's cybercrime division was still learning how to fight enemies it couldn't see. Traditional criminals left fingerprints, witnesses, and tracks. Mitnick left none. He existed in phone lines, servers, and data streams, moving faster than the government could trace. But one man decided to change that. Tsutomu Shimomura, a respected computer security expert working with the National Security Agency, NSA, had his own systems breached on Christmas Day, 1994. Someone had broken into his computers, copied confidential data, and taunted him with messages. It didn't take long before the hacker's signature style was recognized. It was Kevin Mitnick. Shimomura took the attack personally. He began working side by side with the FBI, using advanced cellular triangulation and signal tracing tools, technology still in its infancy. The goal, not to follow Kevin's code, but to follow his habits. Meanwhile, Mitnick was on the run, living under an alias in Raleigh, North Carolina, using cloned cell phones and stolen social security numbers. He'd spend hours each night hacking into systems just to prove he could. He broke into Pacific Bell, Sun Microsystems, and even monitored FBI agents' emails to stay one step ahead. Every time the FBI narrowed the search, he moved again. He'd listen to their scanner frequencies, predict their next move, and vanish before they arrived. His obsession was control, the feeling that he was smarter than the system designed to catch him. But for the first time, the system was fighting back. Shimomura set up digital traps, fake networks disguised as valuable targets. When Mitnick connected, his signal bounced through a chain of servers until it hit one crucial point: a cell tower in Raleigh. On February 15, 1995, just after midnight, the trace locked on. Inside a small apartment complex, agents surrounded the building. The glow of computer screens lit up the windows. Inside, Mitnick sat calm, surrounded by modems, phones, and wires, the tools of his empire. He had no idea the FBI was already watching. At exactly 2 a.m., agents moved in. They knocked down the door and stormed the room. On his desk, 20 cloned cell phones, dozens of floppy disks, and several stolen access codes from major U.S. companies. For years, they'd been chasing a ghost. Now, that ghost was finally cornered. Mitnick didn't fight. He looked at the agents, smiled faintly, and said, "You finally caught me." It was the end of the chase, but not the end of the story. The media exploded. Overnight, headlines across America called him the hacker who held the internet hostage. Talk shows debated whether he was a genius or a criminal. The FBI claimed he had cost companies millions of dollars and could start a war with a computer. But behind closed doors, not everyone agreed. Some agents admitted Mitnick never sold secrets or stole money. He simply broke systems to prove they weren't secure. He was both a criminal and a warning. When Mitnick appeared in court, the prosecution argued he was dangerous enough to be kept offline for life. His bail was denied, and he was placed in solitary confinement. Government officials reportedly feared he could launch missiles by phone, a claim that sounded exaggerated, but it reflected how terrified they were of his skills. In one interview, an FBI agent said, "We weren't just chasing a hacker. We were chasing a symbol of everything we didn't understand about the digital age." As Kevin Mitnick sat alone in his cell, no computer, no phone, no access to the outside world, something strange began to happen. The hacker who once ruled the internet disappeared. No interviews, no leaks, no trace, and the world began to wonder what really happened to the FBI's most wanted hacker. When Kevin Mitnick's arrest made national news in February 1995, the world expected chaos. The headlines called him the internet's most dangerous man. Television hosts compared him to spies and terrorists. But when the FBI confiscated his computers, they didn't find a weapon, virus, or stolen fortune. Just disks, phone cards, and lines of code. Still, the message was clear. The United States government wanted to make an example of him. During his first court appearance, Mitnick looked tired, pale, thin, and quiet. Prosecutors told the judge that if he were allowed access to a phone, he could launch nuclear missiles by whistling tones into the receiver. It sounded absurd, but the media ran with it. The myth of Mitnick had become bigger than the man himself. He was denied bail and placed in solitary confinement for 8 months. No internet, no phone, no contact with the outside world. It was the ultimate irony. The hacker who once had access to everything now had access to nothing. When his trial finally began, the evidence was overwhelming. Mitnick had broken into networks belonging to Nokia, Motorola, Pacific Bell, and several others. He was charged with wire fraud, computer fraud, and interception of communications. But even prosecutors admitted he never sold stolen data or made money from his crimes. His motive wasn't greed. It was obsession. In 1999, Kevin Mitnick was sentenced to 68 months in federal prison, one of the longest sentences ever handed to a hacker at that time. The ruling sent a message to the world. America was cracking down on cybercrime. After the verdict, Mitnick disappeared from public view. No interviews, no press, no online presence. He served his time quietly, reading, studying, and preparing for a life beyond the walls. When he was finally released in January 2000, the world had changed. The internet was no longer a hacker's playground. It was a global empire. Companies like Yahoo, eBay, and Google were rising. Security systems were stronger. The FBI had entire cyber divisions. And the man who helped shape that fear walked out to a world that had already adapted to his legend. For a while, no one knew where he went. Some rumors said he had fled to South America. Others believed he was secretly working for the U.S. government, using his skills to stop cyber terrorists. But the truth was simpler and smarter. Kevin Mitnick reinvented himself. He built a cybersecurity company, Mitnick Security Consulting, advising corporations and governments on how to prevent the kind of attacks he once mastered. He wrote books, The Art of Deception, The Art of Intrusion, and Ghost to the Wires, teaching people how social engineering works. He even became a public speaker, standing on stages where he once stood accused. Over the years, Mitnick's name shifted from criminal to expert. The same skills that once terrified the FBI became the foundation of modern cybersecurity. His story was no longer just about hacking. It was about the consequences of a digital world unprepared for genius-level curiosity. But his mysterious disappearance after his arrest left questions that never fully went away. Why did he stay silent for years? Did he cut a deal with the FBI? Or did he simply realize that the smartest move a hacker could ever make was to disappear? Kevin Mitnick passed away in 2023 after a battle with cancer. He was 59. By then, he had become a respected voice in cybersecurity, a mentor, consultant, and legend in both tech and law enforcement circles. But even in death, his story feels unfinished. Because in every major data breach, every new cyber attack, and every warning about digital privacy, his ghost still lingers. A reminder that the world's first great hacker didn't just expose computer systems. He exposed how fragile human trust really is.